Hey, what's up, everybody? Flights of Fancy, Defying Gravity by Design and Evolution by Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins is an evolutionary biologist, an educator, and best-selling science writer. He's an emeritus fellow and was the Charles Simonyi Professor for Public Understanding of Science at Oxford University for 13 years. Dawkins is also the person who came up with the concept of the meme. Dawkins' meme is like a gene, but it refers to culturally transmitted information rather than genetically transmitted information. Flights of Fancy started as a follow-up to his 2011 must-read The Magic of Reality: How We Know What's Really True. The first chapter was to be about flight, but he quickly realized that the subject was big enough to write an entire book about, so we got Flights of Fancy. This book is unlike any other Richard Dawkins book so far. It's illustrated by Jana Lenzova, who is very talented and has done a magnificent job with Flights of Fancy and bringing another dimension of life to this book. Like The Magic of Reality, Flights of Fancy was designed to be accessible for a younger audience, but is perfectly appropriate for any age. Other than that, it's just what you'd expect from Richard Dawkins. This book focuses on the evolution of flight in animals and by human technology through history, and compares and contrasts the development of the different natural means of flight with machine-aided flight. So it looks at both the genetic and the mimetic evolution of flight. Something that happens when you read Richard Dawkins' books is you're going to want to stop and look up videos and web pages on some of the animals and different concepts you're reading about. And that has never been more true than with Flights of Fancy. I'm not exaggerating when I say that every 2 or 3 pages I stopped and looked up more on whatever he was talking about. Usually it's some interesting feature of an animal or a plant or just the animal itself. You're going to learn a lot of interesting stuff about all kinds of animals in this book. To get an idea of what is discussed in this book, I'll just list off the names of the chapters. Dreams of flying. What is flight good for? Why do some animals lose their wings? Flying is easy if you're small. If you must be large and fly, increase your surface area out of proportion. Parachuting and gliding. Powered flight and how it works. Be lighter than air. Weightlessness. Aerial plankton. Wings for plants. Differences between evolved and designed flying machines. What use is half a wing? And the outward urge beyond flying. Just listing off those names is reminding me of how fascinating this book was and how much I enjoyed it. I almost want to read it again. Some of the other things you'll learn about in Flights of Fancy: streamlining, thermal currents and wind currents, the principles of lift, including Newtonian and Bernoulli's principle, stability and maneuverability, aerial slipstreams and flock formations, stalling, and all kinds of evolutionary concepts like trade-offs, compromises, convergence, coevolution, emergent properties, exaptions and body parts, and complexity from simplicity, and much, much more. Probably what makes this book so fascinating is the animals themselves, like the fig wasp, Archaeopteryx, Argentavis magnificens, terror birds, pterosaurs, and many more. And of course, you get amazing illustrations for most of these. This book is like watching a nature documentary, and learning about how all these different things evolve is just fascinating. Take the hammer orchid, for example, which tricks wasps into delivering its pollen for it. And when I use the word tricks there, Dawkins is very clear that when he uses language like that, the plant isn't actually consciously trying to trick the wasp. He's always having to clarify things like that so that people don't get the wrong idea. The book closes on how living things have a drive to spread out and expand and colonize other areas. Besides just being positively fascinating, the book is just so well written. Dawkins is very good at writing in such a way as to incite more interest and a sense of wonder for learning and discovery. I never really thought enough about flight to buy a book on the topic, but I'm glad that I read this one. If you're someone who's interested at all in flight, be it airplanes, birds, or insects, or just the physics of flight, you're going to love this book. This book would make a very good gift, and it's shorter than a typical Richard Dawkins book. I think it would be especially good for young readers, but don't let that deter you if you're older. This book is just as good as any other science book. It's just not super dense and doesn't contain difficult concepts. Well, guys, thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have the faintest interest in science or nature, you're going to really enjoy this book. So go check out Flights of Fancy by Richard Dawkins.